Morena tātou, koe ke ki te hauroi te iwa karaka. It's now 9:30, so we better get on with our hui. Tuatahi aki rā, kai te mihi ki a koutou, ko tai mai tēnei rā, ki a koutou ko tai mai konei. Ki te whare nei, ki te whakarongo ki ngā kororo, tēnā koutou. Also to those who are on the live stream, anui te mihi. I drew the short stick today, so I get to do the cheering today. And Deputy Mayor Kai Fong's absence. Hoi anō, tēnei ka mihi ake. I'd like to ask te manukura, kai a koe tā tātou karakia I tēnei ata.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Tūtoa mai I runga, tūtoa mai I raro, tūtoa mai I roto, tūtoa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, hauni e, hui e.
Kia ora. Te tuarua o ngā kaupapa calling for apologies. We've received one from Sandra Kai Fong, Councillor Kai Fong rather, and just one for lateness from Councillor Lee. Kapai, can I please have someone move that? Councillor O'Brien moved. Councillor Barker, second. All in favour say aye. He whakahe, kua mana, kapai. Any declarations of interest? Doesn't seem to be any. Sorry, just getting to my call sheet, better follow the rules. So we'll move on to the next kaupapa, which was the agenda items. Any urgent items to be put forward? I haven't received any in writing. Urgent items? What's your... Kia ora. Oh yeah, I'll go to the next one. So no urgent items, but we have a minor item. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a good way to say it. Just following up, if I may, on, I know we've only got 2 meetings left. This is the one of 2. At last week's I&E meeting, I raised the concerns of the residents of Middleton Road regarding the use of that road as the main access for Rongamai School. Their concerns have been quite vocal about the fact that the road is not wide enough for 2 buses, let alone a bus and a car. And I was just wondering if we've had any feedback as to what's happening with that consent. Thank you.
I'll hand over to our CEO. He might have something to... Oh, sorry, Councillor Patterson, there's been a response to that this morning by email. So if you want to talk about it more, I'd suggest you...
Kapai, thank you.
Kia ora. Any other minor matters? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was about to say Madam through practice, but good to see a win for the Brotherhood. Could I just acknowledge and thank Her Worship for the letter that I raised last week about online gambling. This is an important issue, and I thank Her Worship for taking it not only seriously but acting so quickly on the letter. I'll be more than happy to support not only the intent but some of the issues around the fact that no local funding. So there's some very, for me, some very strange or parts of this bill as proposed. So I hope when the select committee process begins, that they take very serious heed of Her Worship's letter, and hopefully the next council will also follow up on this and may even be willing to appear. So I wish them all the best, and I hope the government takes on what our concerns are. Thank you. And thank you to Her Worship.
Tēnā koe, maybe not a minor matter, but an acknowledgement. So, e mihi atu ana. Ako, kai a koe.
Aloha mai, Mr. Chairman. Am I allowed to make any comment on that particular...
Oh, if we can keep it brief, yes. Because I've let it go anyway, so ka pai.
Yeah. Thank you. Whilst I didn't take part in the debate or the decision recently that one of our committees had regarding gambling issues and that, and it's no secret I'm involved with NZCT, but I was very pleased with the letter that went forward from Naomi, especially on the fact that for all our other trusts here in New Zealand, gaming trusts, a good 42% of it goes back to the community it's taken from. But this new structure, nothing comes back to the community in which it's taken from. So I'm pleased that we have followed up on that. Kia me, ngā me.
Tēnā koe e te pāpā, e te rangatira, Trev. I suppose another acknowledgement, so I'll ask once more, minor matters, please. If not, we'll move on. Kapai? Kia ora. Welcome, Councillor Lee. O mai haere mai. Your apology for lateness was lodged.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Chair.
Kapai. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is our minutes of the Community and District Development Committee meeting held on the 9th of July. Is there any kōrero around that in terms of kōrero or changes? No? Well, for that matter, then I'll put it to the table that the minutes of the Community and District Development Committee meeting held 9th of July 2025 be confirmed as a true and correct record. May I have a mover? Councillor Maxwell. Seconder, Councillor Wang. All in favour say aye. E whakahe, kua mana. Thank you. This brings us to our hearings. So at the start of the hui, I did do a mihi to those who have come ki te kōrero, ki mua I tā roaro o te kaunihira. So actually we have, who online? Oh, Roger, right? Roger Lovelace online, and this is to do with the Inner City Safety Bylaw and Policy Review. So, I'm jumping the gun a bit here, aroha mai. So I'd like to ask if there's someone to receive the report. Kia ora, Councillor Parker, Councillor O'Brien, all in favour say aye. E whakahe kua mana. So, without further ado, I'd like to, on Zoom, invite Mr. Roger Lovelace to bring forward his kōrero. I think I'll just outline the kaupapa, which is every presenter gets 5 minutes to kōrero. There'll be no questions, it's just for us to listen, councillors. So, away you go, Roger. I don't know how much you heard of that, but the floor is yours for 5 minutes. Kia kaha.
Okay, good. That comes through all right?
Okay, that comes through all right?
Are audio working?
Away you go.
Audio working?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good morning, Your Worship, the Chair, councillors and staff and other people. Yeah, you will have read my submission, hopefully. I really wanted to make a point as a disabled person with a disability that the solid waste bylaw abandoned supermarkets, trolleys. Well, abandoned supermarket trolleys are one issue, but it seems to me this is part of a wider situation where you have to contend with wheelie bins on the rubbish days on footpaths, vehicles parked on footpaths, uncontrolled street furniture when we're trying to go down some of the main streets and things like that. Tutanikai Street is a particularly difficult place to get around. The consistency of tactile pavers for the vision impaired is inconsistent. Some crossings have got them on there, some haven't. It's really a clear path of access along the side of the footpaths there doesn't exist. Sometimes you've got sandwich boards and things on front of shops and things like that. Anyway, I'll move on from that, having made that point that it's supermarkets trolleys are just one issue. Why just a knee-jerk reaction to new supermarket trolleys when we've got all the other issues there? Talking of the probably I'll move right on to the last bit, the dangerous effect of the sanitary buildings. One of the issues that I find as a traveller at various places overseas, that as a disabled person we find really stands out with good places where you want to travel to and bad ones are the toilet facilities. And this is where I think we fall down quite a lot, but also getting around between places. The CBD certainly needs to be better lit. The footpaths have got trip hazards because of the cobblestones and these sorts of things. And to get around, lighting is useful. I've discovered recently that there are under veranda lights put in there some years ago and falling into disrepute, and this leads on to the verandas being unsafe. Surely, if we're going to revitalise the CBD, we should be looking at everything there, and not just the verandas, under veranda lighting, thinking of the hospitality places there. Can you get safely from your vehicle to the hospitality place you want to go to, or the restaurant? Why aren't the requirements for restaurants access looked into? There are a number of hospitality places there where I, as a disabled person and a wheelchair user, cannot get to the toilet. Surely that is something that is basic and should be part of licensing of those sorts of premises. I don't think it's good enough to just look at the verandas in isolation, and we should be making sure that people can get into the premises where they need to, or get out safely. I'd like to bring people's attention to what Building Research Association put in. They have a lot of guidance on accessible routes within buildings and things like that. And these are things that I think that should rightfully be checked regularly by people regulating the places. Access routes need to be minimum requirements for size, slope, and slip resistance, and these sorts of issues. I went through with one of the councillors the other day through the Howard Morrison Centre, and they're doing that very well. But this should be applied to all of the hospitality systems around here. I dread to think what would happen in some places where I've been to if I needed to get out in a hurry, particularly if there's a lot of people in the way, furniture and that sort of thing. So basically, I don't really want to say much more than what I said in the issue there, in that except that we don't want to have sort of knee-jerk reactions to a few things, and if we can have toilets where we need them, and I've suggested there that when we have a large public area such as the lakefront, I think it was a lost opportunity for putting a accessible changing space down there. The excuse that we could use the one that people with disabilities use the one in the Children's Health Hub, it's not really cut the mustard. Would you expect to go that way to your toilet when you wanted to? There should have been one there. I think the size of the place warrants it, and I think it'd be good to see that sort of thing remedied in the future.
Your 5 minutes is up, mate. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you, but unless you had some closing comments, which I'm going to allow you to have, we'll wrap it up there. And I just want to actually acknowledge you as someone that is consistent in providing us with a lens over a lot of these things. It's great, it's really helpful, and I think certainly we take it on board. So I'd like to thank you, Roger. Tēnā koe.
Thank you for your time.
Ngā mihi nui. Kia ora.
Brilliant.
Well, tēnā koe, Roger. Hoi no ka huri. Te ihu o te waka kia Melanie. Thank you, Melanie. Come and take your place at the front here. From the Rotorua, she's got her Rotorua Business Chamber hat on now. Tēnei rā, so lovely to have you here. It's not your first rodeo, so I welcome you on behalf of all the councillors here this morning. Kei koe, same deal. You got your 5 minutes, so use up all your time and get through all the points you would like to make. Whanui te mihi, kei koe te wā.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Morena koutou. I am Melanie Short from the Rotorua Business Chamber, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to come and speak to you briefly today. But first up, I'd just like to acknowledge we had our AGM on Monday night, and I just would like to thank Her Worship the Mayor and Councillors Brown, O'Brien and Maxwell for coming along. and supporting our AGM along with Andrew and Andrew, the other Andrew, for really supporting us through that important kaupapa on Monday evening, where we were able to acknowledge 2 members of our community, Bryce Hurd and Jeff Rice, with life membership. So that was really special. So as many of you know, I'm new in the role, so coming up 5 months. And previous to this role, I was at Scion, and that is a beautiful situation to work out of, right beside the forest, located in the Te Papu Tipu Innovation Park, housed in the Te Wharenui o Tutiata, which is a beautiful example of innovation and a wood-first approach. But when you work at Scion, you really have no idea what's going on in the CBD. So once I moved into the CBD, into this new role, and many who know me know that I like to walk everywhere, I was quite surprised with what I was seeing in the CBD. And I did notice initially there were people loitering, and some of the buildings were quite run down in some of the areas that I first noticed. So it's important for us from the Business Chamber to submit on behalf of our businesses, and it is in line with our vision for Rotorua around the vibrant city. I am starting to see some positive changes. So this policy update is very important. I'm seeing the less loitering, cleaner streets, and also some of the buildings are being tidied up, so I really applaud that. We do support this proposed bylaw with some clarifications required as per my submission. Just mainly around the signage, what determines nuisance behaviour, rules around scooter behaviour, etc. So just a couple of clarifications. I also would like to commend that the consultation process has been open, and the businesses that we have been interacting with have mentioned that it's very open and fair. We all agree that more work is needed in the CBD, particularly around the safety of our CBD, and that we at the Business Chamber are working with the council teams to address those concerns around safety and clearer communication for our businesses. So I'm very pleased to be working with the council comms team, with JP's team, and looking forward to seeing that eventuate. I did note briefly, and it is rubbish day today, about the wheelie bins. I know it's not part of this, but I would really love to see some clear messaging that it is the business's responsibility to remove those wheelie bins in a timely manner, because that does distract, I should say, to the beautification of our streets and our CBD. I'd also like to acknowledge the hard work of the council teams who do go out early in the morning and clean the streets. I see them out there, and the gardening crews as well. So really that's it from me today, very simple, just to say thank you very much, we support this. I'd like to also wish those who are restanding all the very best. Also to promote the fact that we are running some election-orientated events. All the information should be in your inbox, and I look forward to seeing you at those 2 very important events for our CBD, our business community. So, ngā mihi nui.
Tēnā koe, Melanie, and I assure you, we have looked at your kōrero and look at it with what the mana it deserves, because you were there, you're right in the heart of it. So I think on behalf of all of us, tēnā koe, ngā mihi nui, and look forward to seeing you back.
Thank you.
Anui to me. All right, we've got a good flow on here, Homa. Our next one, and sorry Ryan, I didn't know you were here, you're behind the TV. So, no mai haere mai, step up.
Parents out there.
All sorts, yeah. I just asked Greg over here, is Ryan here? So, again, the mihi goes to you. Thank you for taking the time out to come and present your kōrero and give us a few things to think about moving forward. So, same deal, 5 minutes, all yours. Go hard.
Cool. Kia ora, Chair. I'll try to get the flow going. Thanks for having me along today. Really good to see this bylaw proceeding. Anything that reduces rubbish left in our city streets is to be commended. It seems a little bit strange that we have to go to the extent of creating a bylaw for supermarkets to collect their own property. In my view, the council shouldn't be operating a ratepayer subsidised trolley collection service. Instead, it really needs to be a full cost recovery service. The fees for collection need to be set at a rate which fully recovers council costs. The reason for this is basically so that we provide a sufficient incentive for supermarkets to invest in technology, which restricts the ability for supermarket trolleys to be taken in the first place. You know, Auckland introduced a bylaw in 2019. Christchurch are working through it right now. I was in Auckland last week. Supermarket trolleys are still everywhere. And so without actually stopping it in the first place, I fear that we're just going to see this continue for a while longer. As for the nuisance behaviours, again, I think it's a great idea. I mean, you feel uncomfortable when people are coming up to you on state highways asking you for money, and also it's not safe for them as well. The trouble is that so long as people continue to give money to beggars, they're going to continue to beg. If people weren't giving money in the first place, they would slowly stop returning. So if this bylaw proceeds, I think the council really needs to run a really strong community education campaign to make sure that people know that they could be doing more harm than good than giving. I think it's easy, you see someone in need, you think, I'll give them a couple of bucks, that's going to help them out. But evidence shows that that doesn't actually help anyone at all. I also fear that not being definitive on what constitutes nuisance behaviour could lead to ugly escalations in our city streets. Again, a great idea, but I think education is going to be a really vital part of this bylaw. For the unsafe verandas, my understanding is this is the verandas that cover the footpaths on our city streets. I support the idea of this. I was walking through the city the other day and it was raining and I got water dripping on me, which is never much fun. So it'd be great if that was patched up. But I fear that some landlords, given the state of some buildings in the city, if they're told that they need to repair it, they may find that it's cheaper to instead remove the veranda. And those verandas provide cover from the rain, they provide shade in summer. And I feel like there's a real risk that if we don't actually get the policy right through engaging with landlords to understand what the issue is in the first place, we may end up in a situation where verandas are removed altogether. Lots of CBDs around the country don't have that, and I feel like we're quite lucky here. So we should really make sure that we're engaging with them to ensure any unintended consequences where possible. And that is I.
Nice, straightforward and succinct. Tēnā koe, Ryan, and I assure you, as I've assured all the other presenters, that all kōrero that's received is taken on board. And just in the framework in which we are able to work within. So tēnā koe, anui te mihi, and good luck. Ka pai. Nā reira, ko te kaupapa e whai ake nei, the next kaupapa, next report, moving on to, in our agenda is the Rotorua Regional Airport Limited. No, I've talked to Jared, he is pulled out, so he's going to send our Wairua vibe to us. So, kia ora, tēnā koe Jared, nice to you in here this morning. So, Nicole, ngā mihi nui. Before we get on with your report, I'd just like to put it to the table that it be received. So, kia ora, Councillor Lee and Te Manukura, Tania Tapsel, Tuarua. All in favour say aye. He whakahe, kua mana. Nicole, the floor is yours.
Kia ora koutou, Marina, thank you everyone. I'll do my usual and I'll keep this brief and then I will take any questions. So it's just a quick summary of the report, which I'm sure you have all read. So looking at our financial performance. So the financial performance, I have done up till May because obviously our financials are still being audited for the year. Basically, same summary that you've heard for the last few months. Lower passenger numbers and increased depreciation have driven to a net profit which is below budget, and as at May that was about 8% below budget. This has been partially offset by lower than budgeted operating costs, with operating expenses down 13% and overheads 5% below budget. That is partly due to some heavy maintenance items that we weren't able to get done before winter and have been moved into this current financial year, but also it was a conscious effort to make sure that we were obviously managing costs tightly given the reduced income. So net surplus to May is down 35% on budget. I am expecting it to be a bit lower than that in percentage terms come the end of the financial year, but given the large decrease in landing fee revenue and when you compare that to previous surpluses for the airport, we're still in good shape and are doing well and are delivering what we need to do out at the airport and focusing on essential services. So looking at the non-financial, everything is there. Just one comment on the financial. Because it was May, this doesn't include it, but the debt repayment has been made as agreed in the SOI. That was made at the end of June, so everything was there. That was a $1.4 million debt repayment as per the SOI. Non-financial performance. Everything is fine. We're just with the changes in the asset management structure. That report is still to be coming. Will come with updated numbers from FY25. We're making really good progress on our asset management system. It's a big job, as you can imagine, to get everything into a completely new system, and we're building a system that's fit for purpose for the airport as well at the same time. But we're making really good progress and seeing really good benefits from that already. Operations, basically what's happening out at the airport. The Hangar Cafe, if you haven't been out already, come and have a coffee, come and have a cocktail in the evening and enjoy the view. We're having excellent feedback and it's looking really good. We had to even put some more seats in as well because it does fill up from time to time. We've had a small organisational restructure. No jobs were lost, it was just a restructuring of tasks to better align with our priorities and better align the skill sets within the jobs within each role, and that's already delivering benefits. We're proud to say that we're a finalist in the Rotorua Business Awards in the Safety and Wellbeing category, something that we obviously take very seriously and have a large focus on out at the airport, and great to see the teams putting themselves forward in that area. And, yep, absolutely no change. Our engagement with Air New Zealand to encourage better connectivity to Rotorua and advocate for Rotorua remains unabated and continuous. Probably the best way to put that one. Looking forward, as I already mentioned, final year-end positions expected to be a bit lower but still in good shape. Air New Zealand has now published its November to March schedule, and I'm pleased to report we have got increased services on selected days for Christchurch, Rotorua and Auckland, Rotorua. So Christchurch, Rotorua, over this last winter we've had 1 to 2 services a day. It's going to be increasing to 2 to 3 services a day, so 3 a day on some selected days. And Auckland, Rotorua was double daily, is going to 3 services on a couple of days a week as well in selected months. So slowly but surely heading in the right direction. Still not up to pre-COVID, but heading in the right direction, and we'll continue to advocate to make sure that Rotorua is given the attention it deserves, to make sure that it's, if it's possible to increase that further, that Air New Zealand will look at that. Continuing to have discussions with Ngāti Unika Kaupako to cement the benefits of the Airport Business Park. That's progressing really well, and we've got a good paper up for discussion in tomorrow's board meeting. So expect us to come back to the council in due course with what the consultation process and the outcomes of that we've been having. At the same time, in parallel with the business park, we're obviously firming up costs and looking at stormwater. And so all of this should culminate, hopefully, in a business case by the end of the year is what we're targeting at the moment. Happy to take any questions.
It's good you're happy. Kānui te mihi, thank you, Nicole. And yes, I'll open it up for questions. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your report, Nicole. Some really positive news about the increase in flights from Air New Zealand. That's fantastic. Couple of questions, if I may. The financial side of things, 716,000 loss, which is 295 less. That's pretty good. But the end of year, as you mentioned, is not finalised or audited yet.
Yep.
Is that likely to change?
Yeah, so I'm expecting it to be a bit lower than that 700 number.
Fantastic.
But just because the first half of the year was stronger, and then the back half of the year is what's been not so great with reduced capacity, and obviously we didn't have the cafe for 6 months either, so that's had an impact. Car parking, it all flows through. When you look at it, what the airport's sort of been able to achieve over the last few years, I'm happy with what we've been able to achieve given the economic environment and the situation at the time. And look, things ebb and flow. The way passenger landing fees work is if you underrecover one year, you can try and recoup that back, and we're working through that process at the moment.
Excellent. Subsequent question, Mr. Chair. Under looking forward, you mentioned that there is continuing conversation with Ngāti Uanuku Kōpako. That's a fairly wide-ranging conversation. It's not just a certain group of people. You've spread your net wider this time.
Yeah, we're trying. It's complicated.
Yes, I understand.
So our main conduit into the hapu is through Inuit. So they're our main conduit. Look, as I've told them, and I will tell everyone, I'm also open to have conversations with anyone. If anyone came and knocked on my door, I would happily buy them a coffee and have a chat about the airport and what it means to Rotorua. So we have also met with other members of the hapu that have an interest. But we obviously need to be very respectful of the fact that our main relationship needs to be with the elected members of the hapu. So it's about finding a way to support them to ensure that the net is cast as wide as possible, and we're working through that process at the moment. Excellent.
One last question, if I may. Talking about looking forward, and I don't expect you to reveal who they may be, but are there any feelers out in the market for any other carriers coming to Rotorua?
Look, we're always looking at opportunities, and if I've got anything to report, we'll let you know. But as at this point in time, we never say never, and look, we would always explore all opportunities, but nothing to report at this time.
Thank you.
Tēnā koe. Councillor Lee, followed by Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your report, Nicole. I'm always curious about the new flight path, and I wonder if you could give us an update on that, and bearing in mind that some people might be not across the new flight path and what that means for Rotorua.
Okay, so the new flight path, for those that don't know, is an ATR flight path coming in from the south, and it reduced basically the minima. I found out recently it's not obvious what that means. So the decision point at which the pilot needs to go from instruments to visual is below half of what it used to be, so they can get a lot closer to the airport. Look, on the days that the problem we seem to be facing at the moment, and I'm trying to get some more information out of Air New Zealand, is that not all of the crew are qualified for this new RMP technology. So the last update I had was that all crew would be trained on it by the end of the year. So I've been talking to Air New Zealand about, how can we make sure we're getting more trained crew, and, could we look at getting more, is there an opportunity to get more ATRs, so that feedback has been passed on to them, and they're taking that into consideration for their next scheduling season. But when it is operating, it's operating very well. I can sit in my office and barely see Makoia Island, and planes have landed. So if we can get that technology just being used more, and then obviously from our end we're looking at what we can do for the north, and we're also making some other changes at the moment around takeoff minima and other things. So we're constantly trying to find ways to improve the operating environment so we can get in more inclement weather.
Excellent. So that's we have seen some improvement this winter then, but not as much as we.
Yeah, not as much as we would like, because most of the aircraft are Q300s and not all ATR pilots are trained, but when it's working really well.
Great, thank you very much.
Tēnā koe, Councillor Lee. Just before we head over to Councillor Maxwell, just hand it over to our CEO, who just wanted to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Basin, I might have misheard your question, but I thought in reference to the table you mentioned there was making a $700,000 loss. So just to be clear, it's not a loss, it's a $700,000 surplus. So the table shows a surplus in their performance. It's just lower than the budgeted targeted surplus, but it is a surplus, just to be clear. Have I got that right?
Yes,
cool. Thank you
have. I did.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's certainly sweeter to the ear than the first comments. Kia ora. E te rangatira, Chief, kai a koe te wā.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kia ora, Nicole. You mentioned about the Air New Zealand schedule for November and March is now fully published, so we'll have details of flight times and everything?
It's just as per what's selling on their website. If people need schedules, we can try and send something through, but somebody gets in contact with me, I'm happy to share what information we have. It does vary from month to month, but it's what they're selling. When we say published, it means they've put it into their selling system.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through the Chair. Thank you for your report, Nicole, as always. Could I just ask two quick questions, if I may? First of all, congratulations on the increased amount of flights to Auckland, but is this a two-way sword? Yes, it's good that we've got more flights, but is this just meaning that we're not going to get a Wellington connection or a Queenstown connection because everything will just go through Auckland?
Look, I think the more connections to Auckland, so a lot of people at the moment, if you're using Queenstown and Wellington as an example, are connecting via the Auckland service, and obviously Air New Zealand have really good visibility of that. So if people are using that and it's giving the confidence to Air New Zealand that those that their market is there, then obviously that's going to support the numbers. So yeah, possibly, but at the moment it's just the best way. When you're doing scheduling for, Air New Zealand scheduling team or network planning team, it's basically juggling a whole lot of balls, and you move one thing and it moves another, and they've just got to work out the best balance. At the moment, that's the best balance.
True, but I would I would submit that possibly there's a case there if all we're doing is helping fill up empty seats on an Auckland to Queenstown flight or Auckland to Wellington, it doesn't bode well for us in the future, but that's okay. We can.
Yeah, I would probably disagree with that. Yep.
That's fine. My second question is, if we still don't have in Air New Zealand's future plans to increase our Wellington and Queenstown services, I've seen other airports have had, with varying degrees of success to be fair, chartered flights themselves to particular markets. Is that something the airports ever thought of? And if so, would that be something you could carry, or you would need council assistance with that?
Yeah, that type of thing can come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. It's not something, chartering services isn't something that we've directly thought of. No, you would need an operator, a tourism operator, or someone who was going to take a big chunk of seats to help give you the surety that would work. Often what the difficulty is with, if you're chartering a flight, is the passengers might only want to go one direction, but you have to pay for the plane to go two directions. So you've got to make double the amount of money on the leg that you're filling up to fund the whole cost. So it's with my background, that's something I used to have quite a bit of experience with those types of things, and it's a tough ask to make it stack up. So it's not something that we've immediately thought of, but if there was a tour operator or someone that wanted to help put schedules together, then obviously we would be here to support them and give them industry knowledge if that was required, but not on the agenda at this stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nicole, I wonder if at a future presentation, obviously for the next council, we might see a longer term trend on analysis on the revenue, aeronautical particularly. I'm just wondering whether we're seeing, a long-term trend, and then if we are, where's the bottom, and what's the catalyst for getting an increase in aeronautical revenue?
Yep. We can definitely pull something. We can definitely do something. What I can tell you is that our revenue, if you just look at landing fee revenue and aeronautical revenue for the last sort of 5 to 10 years, has gone up significantly. So it's been on quite a trajectory. We're getting to the point at the moment where Air New Zealand is struggling to take some of those increases. So absolutely, we can share that information, but there has been some sharp increases over the last few years.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Thank you.
Oh, kia ora tātou. Doesn't seem to be any more questions. Councillor Brown asked my question. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you for the report and the presentation. Good to see the airport doing well. So still some challenges ahead, but kia kaha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, which is the short-term rental accommodation working party update. So can I get a mover, please, and a seconder for that the report short-term rental accommodation working party update be received? Councillor Barker, Councillor O'Brien, all in favour say aye. E whakahe ka hau kua mana. Thank you very much. Lau mai, haere mai, hoki mai JP, korua ko David. Morena, floor is yours.
Morena, Mr. Chair. I was used to saying Madam Chair, but Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Just hopefully the report is pretty clear. I think if our usual chair was here, she would be keen to acknowledge the significant contribution we've had from the individuals involved in the working party. We've had really positive meetings, some really good questions being asked, and some challenging conversations between the different sectors across the table, done in a really collegial and positive way about the betterment for the district and for the accommodation sector in general. So really good group, worked really well. The recommendations that the group sort of finalised are identified there, and so happy to answer off any questions for David and I.
Okay, floor is open for questions that pertain to this report. Are there any? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, JP. David, for your reports. Could I just ask about the resolution and the wording on it, that the committee, on the recommendation of the working party, resolves to request that the primary online booking platform providers work with Rotorua Lakes Council on a pilot for local registration processes in the Rotorua district. So when you say resolves to request, so if we request and they decline, what happens there?
They've declined. I think the key thing from the working group was that they saw this as an opportunity, and it actually had come from those involved in Airbnb specifically who were at our table. That look, there's some really effective methods being applied in other countries, and the registration fields are there. They're just not switched on for New Zealand. So their kind of perspective was we spend a significant amount of money trying to track and identify premises that are being used for short-term accommodation. Their kind of view was, that's inefficient. And that money should be spent really doing what we're all looking here to do, which is to collect that revenue, share that revenue requirement to promote the district. So that's the marketing fund. So if we can avoid spending the money on trying to identify properties, that would be a benefit. So their request was say, look, there's a functionality that Airbnb has and the other platform providers, and we would just be requesting that they switch on that registration field for our spatial extent of our district, so that everyone would have to register with council, and we would set up a process with them as a pilot to undertake that to minimise the cost. So that's the request.
Thank you. In supplementary, if I may. So under the bylaw changes that we put through last time, can I ask then, so when you say you want to set up a pilot for registration, so those are people that aren't affected by the rules as we set last year, you're asking them to now register? There'd be a requirement for everyone providing any short-term accommodation to register, or only those that meet our requirements that we put forward?
So there's two parts to that, Councillor, just to unpackage it. We don't have a bylaw, we have a rating policy that applies. So the key piece here would be, and we have exclusions. So if you take our current policy, it would be if you register, and I'll keep using Airbnb, if you are seeking to register on the Airbnb site, you would need a registration number from the Rotorua Lakes Council. So they would contact us. We would give them a registration number that would go onto their site. The rating application would only apply so far as our current rating process applies, which is the full home. So if you've registered on Airbnb because you've got one room you let, or you have a secondary dwelling on your site, you would receive a registration number, but there would be no implications for you as far as a cost was concerned. That's the approach.
So could I ask, if I was a provider and I'm meeting the requirements and I come under the rating policy, what's the incentive for me to register?
I think the you can't register on their website without a registration number.
Sure, but if I do my own thing or go via overseas?
100%. If you do completely your own thing and you do not use their platform, so this is the pilot discussion, then you're outside of our system still, and we would still need to try and identify your site. The piece here is that it's the compulsory field discussion, councillor. So if they switch on that field, you couldn't register on Airbnb for your premise unless you've got that registration number.
Okay, thank you.
Tēnā koe, Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'm just going to carry on from Mr. Councillor O'Brien's question. You talk about the field that they would switch on in their website that would identify them because they've registered and we've therefore got their information. Could we take a leap to say that that same field would be how places like Barcelona and Rome charge people when they rock up to the front counter? They say, by the way, you have to pay another $35 city tax. Is that the same process? So if down the track that could easily be activated? So if we take this on now, it's the first step to that, so that it takes it away from us having to chase them for rates, that it actually becomes part of the process when you front up. So it's a user pays scenario.
I think there's two parts of that. Remember, we're only got an ability to,
yes, I know that,
tax through our rating policy.
But down the track.
If the government put in place a bed levy or a bed tax or an accommodation tax / supplement, yes.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Ahu atu ana kia koe, te ronga tirangi wawihi, anko, Chav, kia koe.
Tēnā koe te tiamana. A very good report, and I think it was good to get and timely. The question I'm going to lead to is one on page 35 at the conclusions. Not engaging STRA sector prior to the LTP process created an antagonistic and negative discussion on the rating proposal. We received hundreds of submissions, extra days, various things like that. Can I ask, I'm very pleased that we've got the working party, seems to be working well, by the way. Can I ask, what did we really learn from doing that? Would we ever do that kind of out to the community? Because we did end up upsetting a lot of people. Kia ora.
Through the chair, I think it's important to remember that this rate was brought in for a very specific purpose to address the needs of Rotorua NZ for additional funding to destination marketing and the reputation rebuild. The short-term accommodation rate was seen as a way to share the cost across people who were benefiting. So through those long-term plan discussions, quite early on, the short-term accommodation rate was identified as a lever we could use to address that, and so we did go out for consultation through that process on the directions of council. We took on board the feedback that we did receive, so we went out and talked to the community. We had hearings right here in chamber where we invited people to come in and listen and make their proposals. We had hearings, and we took on board the views of the affected people. And the end result is that we did actually change the approach with the rating. So we took that feedback on board, and the end result of the final short-term accommodation rate took on board the views of people who had submitted. So look, rates are a complicated and emotive topic at times, but we did everything we could within the timeframes of the long-term plan and the consultation process to take on those views and make sure that the final product reflected those.
Probably, Councillor, just adding to that, recommendation 4 actually is the reciprocal or positive outcome of that discussion. So whilst they highlighted as a working group that it had created some negative views and some disappointment from the sector, they saw the working group as being a really good place to air some of those and make sure the information went back out to the sectors. And so hence their recommendation 4, which is please consider for the new council coming in, so that's a new council discussion, to continue it, because it does become a positive engagement pathway outside of just using the annual plan process. So as we said, we've got the review of the policy coming up in 2 years' time alongside the LTP to mitigate some of those concerns and those disappointments. That's why recommendations 4's there.
Councillor Barker.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, team, for the report. And just following on from that conversation you just had, there was highlighted throughout the report, actually, the feedback from that working group was around communication, sending letters to those that had submitted statutory declarations, positive messaging, early and comprehensive engagement, which are some of the quotes that came through. So as a result of, if this resolution goes through, is there a communication sort of plan going forward to keep the rest of the sector, or the whole sector, abreast of what is happening and what's going to look like? Just the communication is key.
Councillor, that's a good question. We were just doing our normal channel communications, but certainly the representatives we had around the table were, and if you remember who's there, they are quite plugged into the groups and actually are the sort of coordinators of particularly the Airbnb group, which was quite extensive. So the messaging from our meetings and even from the preparation of this report was being identified to go back out to all of their members. So there is a communication pathway that they take ownership of themselves, as well as our material going forward. I think the key here for our new council coming in is quite early on we signal whether there is a desire to see this group continue as a lead-in to the next LTP or not, but that's a decision for the next council.
Thank you for the answer, and I just want to reiterate that any time we're doing something like this, it's actually going to have significant changes. It's get ahead of the communication and make sure we get it right. Anyway, thank you.
Very supportive of those comments, Councillor Parker. Okay, so it looks like we're Councillor Lee, question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to hear that the short-term rental accommodation representatives are positively engaged. I've heard some positive feedback from them as well. So this is, I would assume the next council would continue on with this group until we get a good recommendation from them. Just following on from Councillor Patterson's line of question, I seem to recall that central government has ruled out a bed tax at this stage, the current government. Is that correct?
Look, it pops up in the media quite regularly, and I think actually Auckland's reignited that in the last couple of days. I think I've seen a story, but you're correct. That's the message that has been consistently put forward by government.
Thank you. That was all.
Councillor Lee. Okay, looks like we've got to the end of our questioning time. Guess now it's time for me to read out these things, do it officially. And the points are that the committee, and thank you David, and thank you JP, that the committee on the recommendation of the Working Party resolves to request that the primary online booking platform providers work with Rotorua Lakes Council on a pilot for local registration processes in the Rotorua district. The next point being that the additional options be explored by council staff in conjunction with the Working Party to share rating charges fairly to other parts of the short-term rental accommodation sector to support the 2027 long-term plan process. And lastly, that the post-election council be asked to consider continuing the Working Party to continue to develop improvements in partnership. So with that being said, can I get a mover, please? Te Manukura, seconded by Councillor Patterson. I'll now invite for a to my colleagues for discussion, if there is any discussion, because I think we discussed it quite well. Kia ora rā, Councillor O'Brien, kaya koe te wā.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to vote for the proposal, for the motions here. I would like to add a couple of things, areas of concern. It worries me that we have a request to a primary online. Personally, that for me just opens up the possibility of someone creating a new online platform that says we won't comply with council. And we suggest that we advocate you obviously follow the laws according to rating policy, but we won't pass that on. So I think we may actually, in lieu, be actually creating a problem for the actual industry, possibly unintentionally. So I have a concern there. The second part for me is I'd like to acknowledge and thank the members of the Working Party that have worked with our staff apparently so constructively, because I do know they were under pressure from how we handled this process, which, and I back up what Councillor Barker said about the communication, because I think that was very sadly lacking. And I find it somewhat ironic that we've gone from one process and now we're looking for the possibility of registration, which is what many in the industry came forward at the time and said they would much rather have worked with us on in the first place. So it seems, for me, we won't go over what happened last year, but it's good that we are looking at the registration side. For me, the other area of concern is it would be much better to have a nationwide registration policy. Now, I appreciate the current government has said many times, following on from what Mr. Gaston said, that they will not be favourable to new taxes. But a registration system that allows local government to share a burden across, for me personally makes a lot of sense. So perhaps those that, like to go down to LG and Z conferences, that might be something that they perhaps want to pursue next year, about working alongside LG and Z to at least perhaps just get a registration process in place, even if it doesn't actually include, say, taxes or levies or something in those lines, and then for various councils to work through from there. So for me, I will be voting in favour, but as I say, I do have some concerns about us acting alone in this point. And as I say, I hope there aren't unintended consequences of this that actually go against what we're actually trying to achieve here. For me too, the registration process, like what's the fees we'll be looking at? Obviously that'll be something, future council and working party should the future council wish to continue. But are we still looking at a set amount of money like we were during the LTP process, or are we just looking to involve everyone and just see the amount of money escalate? And if so, for what, and what's the accountability on that? So I hope those are the sort of questions our friends, both amongst the working party and our own staff, cement those before any action comes to fruition. But as I say, it's a good piece. I thank our staff for, rescuing that relationship, which was, quite terse. So well done, and I'll be happy to support. But I would ask those questions be addressed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. I share your sentiments in terms of the mihi to our staff and to the working party. In my haste to get the ball rolling, I did forget to ask the mover of the motion that has been put forward to see if they want to go first or last. So, if they'd like to go last, kapai. Councillor Patterson, followed by Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the seconder, obviously I support this. I think it's a great first step. I think this will work being a pilot program. We have to start this somewhere. And as Councillor O'Brien and many others have pointed out, yes, we can't levy a tax. We're only a council, but other cities around the world do it. So it's only a matter of time before our government realises that this is one thing that we could do and do well, because it could be expanded to not just using the revenue for our marketing, but also for paying for the infrastructure that our visitors use. At the moment, we get nothing. So they come and they use our lakes, they visit our beautiful mountains, our thermal areas, and at the moment they contribute little to that. This could be a means of doing that, which is exactly how they do it in Barcelona and Rome. They take the money when you rock up, you pay your $35, and it's not the burden of the owner of the property. it's not coming off their rates, which many of them were anti in the first place, and I can understand that. So if that was removed, I believe this is the first step in that direction. We could be being the number one visitor destination in the country. It's about time we took the lead, and hopefully, maybe not this election, but the next one, government may see fit to hand that responsibility to us and allow us to drive it as a user pay system for our visitors. So yes, absolutely support this.
Thank you for your salient points. That's 2-4. Are there any other? Oh, Councillor Lee, sorry. Kia ora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have reservations about increasing rates at any time. I'm interested to hear what the committee comes up with, the working group in due course, about the 30 days advertised rule as it currently is, because I don't think that's working well, particularly 60 days advertised. Thank you, Councillor Wing. You know, we've got residents out at Tarawera who do a little bit of Airbnb-ing, and then they're being hit with a $36,000 rates bill. It's, you know, it's pretty tough. But I don't share Councillor O'Brien's concerns about a new platform potentially coming into the market. This is a very well-developed, mature market. I think Airbnbs have been around since 2008. So that's not a great concern of a new player coming in. I'll follow the direction and the lead, the recommendation by the working party, and we'll see with interest. I do have one point of clarification on this, if I may. These recommendations that we have, are we anticipating that the platforms will make these changes to their software free of charge? We're not looking at paying a fee to these platforms, are we?
I'm not sure. JP, are you able to add to that or allow that?
Councillor, I think the key here is that we're starting a conversation with them. I don't expect that as a conversation, if we talked about a pilot and the functionality that exists in their sites and in their systems, that we would need to contribute. I think the key discussion is how we would work together to be effective.
Thank you, JP. Thank you, Councillor Lee. Mihinui. That's 3-4, so unless there's anyone against, I'd like to hand it over to ki a koe te marukura, ki a koe te kupu whakamutunga.
Ngā mihi nui ki a koe. I just want to start by identifying that it's fantastic that we are leading the way in terms of this across the country. When we brought in the economic development rate and started fairly charging the short-term accommodation providers who previously were not providing commercial rates like other accommodation providers such as motels and hotels, and actually a register is consistent with the regulations that other accommodation providers are already having to do. So it's been a real anomaly when the advancement of technology created things such as Airbnb and Uber, but they were operating under the radar, shall I say. I think that this is a very reasonable recommendation from the Working Party, and I want to acknowledge those in our community who are providing their feedback. That Working Party contains people that do have a number of Airbnbs or at least a number of years' experience with Airbnb, and it's hugely significant in making sure that we get this right. Can I also mention that there across the country, which is why we need to continue to work not only with the online booking platforms but also in advocating the government to bring this in, because there are almost 58,000 active listings on Airbnb alone in New Zealand, and the average income of an Airbnb host is apparently around $55,000 per year. So it is a very small amount compared to the income that they earn, but that amount actually contributes to not only boosting tourism but also our local economy. It means that we're not relying on ratepayers across our district who are not involved in earning this income, but they actually have been providing the funding for this core service that we provide of ensuring that we can get visitors to our destination. So it has been really great since we've established it to see significant amount of funding coming through this rate, and I think that while the government is not looking at any new taxes, we need to emphasise that this is actually just a register to enable us as councils to provide our targeted rate fairly and ensure that people are contributing, especially those who will benefit from this as well. So very happy to support this, but do want to note that we are in discussions. In particular, I've spoken with the Mayor of Auckland and Mayor of Queenstown as the three top visitor destinations in the country, and they also support this direction as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll be happily supporting in favour.
Tēnā koe te manukura, and with that, it's been moved and seconded. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All in favour say aye. E whakahe. Carried. Unanimous. Ngā mihi nui, and thank you for all your contributions to that discussion. It's getting to about 10:30, but I think if we are really efficient, we could do very well. So I'm going to ask for the next agenda item to come up, which is community experience. Alex Wilson, what a great name, I must say. No mai haere mai. And can I get someone to please move to receive the report? Councillor O'Brien and then Councillor Barker to second. All in favour say aye. E whakahe, kua mana, all yours, Alex.
Kia ora, councillors and Mr. Chair. Thanks for having us. I've got my amazing team behind us as well for questions and answers later too. So those faces hopefully are familiar to you. All right. Look, the report, again, probably a fairly similar format to what you're used to by now. We have taken the opportunity for this time to not only give you an update on in the last 2 months worth of progress, but also we talk a little bit about what we've achieved over the full 12 months. And you may also recall that as part of the last update, I mentioned that there was a broader review of the library programs and services underway, and we've presented some data in the report, but we've put it into graphical format for you in this presentation too. So just blazing into the long-term plan measures, so we've had a dip overall in terms of the library interactions of about 1.5% on our annual target, and we're about 0.3% lower than our position at the end of last year, at the end of 2024. That said, within that we have seen quite significant increases in research inquiries and e-resource use. And so, again, if you look at smoothing that out over the period of 12 months, we're still achieving around 36,000 interactions per month with customers. We're being active, I guess, is probably the main point in our response to the library data. And an example is where we've seen a dip in computer use, and we think that's largely driven by at-home cheaper Wi-Fi services that are available. We have looked to reduce the number of computers that we have on offer, and that means we've gained some more real estate, so we can use that area to provide services and programs that we see are in high demand. So we're being quite responsive to the data as we receive it. Another point just to bring to your attention that we've had a change in delivery schedule around the library to use services. That's resulted in a little bit less demand, and we can talk about that a little bit more, or you can ask some questions of Julianne around that, but it's we're still servicing the same areas, we're just grouping the trips that we're doing to be a little bit more efficient with the use of the vehicle. But that's seen about a 17% reduction in our outreach services. In terms of program participation and event participation, we're about 9.7% below what our annual target was, and we're about 6.7% below where we were as at the end of 2024. If you look to break that down a little bit further, that's at an initiative level, really the big drivers of that are around a decline in adult program participation, as well as in school literacy programs and some of our partner events, but that's offset by quite a significant increase in participation around our after-school and holiday programs, and that's where the big numbers that are interacting, so you'll see that in some of the data in the graphs as well. Moving on to the museum, we have secured 1.24 in external funding for the museum exhibition project. It still leaves us with around a $8.27 million shortfall to complete the project as estimated. We have around 800,000 of indicative funding commitments, which are still to be finalised, so they're in our pipeline. And we are looking at investigating options which we'll present to this or the new council in the new year for how we might be able to reduce that spend or have options that look at a bit of a staged reopening around that. The design work in a positive though is underway, and we've got a 25% milestone due at the end of this month. So just looking at some of the library data specifically, so we have completed a review of the customer data, and we've extracted, we've gone back to 2022, so you can actually see some of the longitudinal trends across our programs and services. So if you look at the right-hand graph on the presentation as a first, you'll see there has been quite a change in customer behaviour around physical book issues, but you can actually see that's more than offset by an increase around the equivalent in e-book issues. So we're seeing some real trends over those few years. If you look at the left-hand side of the graph, you'll see that the library to you is down compared to last year. Apologies, the scale is a little bit challenging. So you can see that the dark blue is our sort of library book issues, and everything else is a lot smaller than that. So it's hard to to demonstrate the trends, but you can get a sense for where we're static and where we're increasing. So we have library to use down, but it is relatively stable if you compare it back to 2022, and that's the same for computer logins. We have seen quite an increase in heritage and research, even though on the graph up there it's a very light purple line on the far right-hand bar. Moving on to some of the participation levels, we're actually achieving a 37.2% growth in program participation if you compare us from 2022. So that's a 7,000 increase over that period, which is on average around an additional sort of 1,700 participants each year. So the graph really is intended to give you some information on what our customers are engaging with in terms of the library programs that are on offer. And really, I guess my key takeaways are that, our bread and butter customers are preschoolers, kids and students, and that all shows positive growth. School literacy, which I mentioned earlier, hasn't been as strong. We have had a vacancy in that, which has limited some capacity, but I have a sense that there's some broader education impacts that might be playing into that statistic as well. Adult programs have declined significantly. Again, we've had some staff vacancies in that over the last 14 months. Partner events are relatively static, and we've been assessing the type of events that attract people into the library, and that'll help inform our 25-26 program schedule, and we expect to see some of those numbers bounce back for this next 6-month period. In terms of our non-LTP measures, so this is moving on to the broader portfolio. In the customer solutions team, we've seen a 1.7% increase in calls from 2024. We've seen a 7.4% increase in emails from the same period. We have seen an 18% decrease in processed payments or payments processed, and again we think that's largely, and I think I've reported this before, due to people undertaking more online payment methods, so direct debits or online banking. The decreased rate of resolution for 24-25 is largely attributed with some of our challenges with staff retention, so we've reported that before. So what we're investigating around that is to utilise our RLC's AI functionality a little bit further. So at the moment, what happens is, in terms of call resolution, if we aren't able to get our newest staff, they're not ready to go onto the phones, it can just mean a delayed service or a delayed response. Using the AI functionality, and it's you might need to ask someone that's more technical, but there's this predictive root call situation, which means that they can understand what they're after and direct it to one of the subject matter experts within the teams immediately. So that will just help smooth that time to getting our people inducted and underway. In terms of the museum, we're behind target in terms of for both for education in terms 1 and 2. We've had a 50% reduction in staffing over those periods. We are expected that to bounce back for terms 3 and 4. We have been able to accommodate all of our out-of-town schools during that period and have been rescheduling our locals where we can. Library, we've had a 4.5% drop in door count from 2024, and I'll cover off some of those findings as well as a recent survey undertaken by public libraries in the next slides. In terms of community engagement, we've applied the total funding available of $100,000 this year, and so the difference in costs was just the different funding envelope that we had across that program. So door count, this has been a line of questioning from this committee over the last couple of reports, so we wanted to present a bit of a fuller view on how the door count stats have changed over time. So as you know, the library moved from a 7-day operation to 6 days a week in September 2023. So overall, if you look back from 2022, we are still trending upwards, despite that slight drop, so that 4.5% I mentioned on the last slide. We have, though, over that period, the increase is about 31.9% over those 4 years, so we're definitely trending upward. What we also wanted to provide you was a bit of a view of the seasonal impact around library attendees. Just to give, I guess, context for when you sort of see numbers on a 2-month period, it doesn't quite give you a feel for, some of those longer trends. So you can actually see that we are tracking upwards, but we have quite a few seasonal trends. So we see regular dips in December and January. So we know people travel and leave the district and have their holidays elsewhere. And we also have spikes around the school holidays, particularly in April and July. So again, it just reinforces that we're really providing a valuable service to the community and customers during those periods. During the last report, we mentioned that public libraries were conducting a survey across all public libraries in New Zealand. The information that we've contained within this report presents Rotorua's summary, and I'll talk through just a couple of the areas where we're performing well compared to others. We're about the same, and where we might be a little bit short of the national, just for this committee to get a feel for where we sit in the national landscape. So just a little bit about Public Libraries New Zealand. They provide support to libraries, and they do that by collecting data. They do annual quantitative data surveys, which is demonstrated up here, but they also do quite a lot of advocacy around libraries and the value that they bring to communities. So these are their measures, and their measures present information across individual growth, social connection, and community wellbeing. So there were around 8,600 responses nationally across 37 libraries, and Rotorua had about 1,000 responses, so we're still statistically viable and amongst that. So largely we're on par with other libraries in New Zealand across encouraging love of reading. So we're, and when I say on par, we're within sort of 2 to 3% either up or down on the national. So we're, encouraging the love of reading. We're on par with the national. Helping improve literacy. We're also on par. Supported a parent and caregiver or child relationship. Enabled me to gain or improve my computer skills, and helped increase my opportunities to study and learn, and help me to understand more about the diversity of culture in New Zealand. So those are some pretty good places to be at about the national average for. We scored a little bit under in the fields of increased feelings of happiness and wellbeing, so we're about 6% below the national average there. Improved my independence and confidence and increased my self-esteem, so again we're about 6% below the national. Increased my feelings of belonging to a community, we're down around 8%. and help me be more mindful of environmental issues. So we're down around 4% on that. But we did exceed a couple of areas, particularly around supporting me to explore my heritage and supported my learning and use of te reo. So we exceeded that. So my reflection on those, in terms of what we define as core library services, we're doing as well as, if not better than some libraries, and where we really are exceeding it is in the cultural space as well. So it's a reflection, I guess, of us understanding our customer. Moving on to the challenges, risks, opportunities across the portfolio. Well understood, I guess, by this committee is our fundraising challenge for the museum exhibitions. So we mentioned, an $8.2 million shortfall at the moment. We are expecting sponsorship and philanthropic, a report on that, the landscape that might be suitable for us to be delivered in September. And that will help us identify what the current opportunity is to seek sponsorship funding for the museum. We are also planning a range of events that will seek donations and funding, and we're progressing a range of options that at how we may reopen the museum should we not achieve the full funding target. It is a real challenge. The team have worked incredibly hard, and we've talked about this before, to get the fundraising that there is. There is little opportunity for really big dollars. So we'll come back to you once we have that sponsorship landscape, because that might require us to have a more challenging conversation around the options that we put forward at the beginning of the year. Now that we've had the library program review, we have really good information on the programs and events and services that our library customers are interested in, and that will inform our offerings for the coming year. And I mentioned also previously that we've got this AI functionality that will help get customers to the right team faster and boost that first call contact resolution piece. So we'll be leveraging the expertise across the business in the first instance when we have new staff, and then once new staff we'll be taking over from there. In terms of our forward focus, we've got the reopening scenarios, we've got the HQ funding and sponsorship analysis due in September. We are still on track to get those scenarios through to the new council in the new year. Library will continue to review its programs. One of the things that's really reflected on is understanding the customers that currently interact, and actually how do you start to double down on those customers that are already engaging with you. What's their pathway in the library look like? So we're really trying to establish how we encourage that repeat custom. The guest and registered portals, we've talked about that previously with this committee. That is planned for August and September respectively. They'll further enhance the customer experience with customers being able to do much more online. So the guest portal, which is the first one to go live, customers will be able to lodge and report requests, make payments online, and access services more conveniently. The registered portal will offer those, but some additional features, including allowing them to view and manage their transactions, access and update information related to their dogs, request property files and limbs, track the status of their queries, which will be a big game changer for us in the open spaces specifically, and they'll also empower customers to interact with services, more efficiently and transparently. So that's the aim. We are approaching the end of this cohort of the Youth Council and gearing up for the next round of promotion and selection. I mentioned also last time that we were looking at data across our funding programs and having a view of the impact that funding has been providing. So we'll have that analysis done in the next couple of months, and that'll inform a broader review of our funding programs. And also, just wanted to, I haven't kept it in the presentation, but we do have some really nice stories, feedback from the customers around how they're interacting, so that's in your reports as well. I'm wondering, that's it from me for questions, but through you, Mr. Chair, shall we bring the team up one at a time? I think that worked quite well last time.
Oh, yes, thank you, Alex. Yes, I think we'll do that, and we'll do it in sections, e homa, so if there's library questions, we'll do library, and then if the museum one, we'll do museum, so on and so forth, just to try and keep it in some sort of order. Otherwise, they could go all over the place, and you'll have our team going back and forth all the time. So I'll leave that in your hands to guide, Alex.
Thank you. All right, in that case, I might see if Julianne Wilkinson, since we had quite a lot to do with the library and the report, she wants to join us.
We'll open up for questions on the library, part of the report. So if there are any, please. All right, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Julian. Physical books are on the decline and electronic books are on the increase. How far into the future do we start thinking about the use of space?
Sorry, say that.
So how far into the future, if physical books are declining, I guess we don't need to, this is further into the future, hold physical books. Do we start thinking about the spaces that we occupy with that?
Yeah, thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Greg, we're looking at that already. So we're continually monitoring all of our collections to identify where we need to what's called weed and reduce space in unused collections and create space for other activities in the library. I think we probably need to give it a little bit more time yet in terms of developing trends to identify what that will look like. What I am aware of in talking to my colleagues across the country is there is variation. So some libraries are still seeing really good physical book issues. There is an increasing trend with e and audio books across the board, but I don't want to be rash and make too early a decision to find that that's going to be detrimental to our customer base. So I think a little bit more time is required for that one yet.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's right. We don't know where we're headed, so I think we need to take time around long-term strategies. That'd be good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brandt. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kia ora, Julianne. I noticed on the KPIs, quite a few of them had words like feelings and well-being and all those nice, warm, fuzzy things that are important for our community, the function that the library performs. Do you see any concerns with government's policy, stated policy, of removing the four well-beings from our core services? And if so, do you think that will impact you?
Just to start, Councillor Patterson, are you referring to the data with the circles? Yes, so that was Public Libraries New Zealand survey. So that's their assessment criteria. Our KPIs are, contained earlier in the report, which are, more around who's interacting, what are the statistics, etc. So in some ways we're bound by this. So it might be a question to pose to them: how are they reflecting the trajectory that this government is providing around the full wellbeings, but this is the data that we've got to extract from at this stage.
So just a subsequent, so you don't see any threat to our libraries, because they're, personally I believe they're a part of our community and need to be maintained. However, that's not necessarily the view of those in Wellington.
I'll hand that over to the Chief Executive.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Patterson, and through you, Mr. Chair. Just want to be clear that if you're looking at the same legislation I'm looking at, it's called the Systems Improvement Bill, and what it does is it removes the four well-beings as broadly defined, but reaffirms the core functions of council, which include libraries. So just to be clear, the definition, the same legislation that removes the generic for well-beings also reinforces that libraries are a core service of council. So I'm very comfortable that libraries continue to be, in this government's view, core business of council. How we continue to deliver that is what the team are doing, and they're using data and they're putting the customer at the centre, again, very much in line with the improvement program for this organisation generally that I've outlined. So,
thank you. You give me a lot more confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Lee, followed by
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow on from Councillor Patterson's question, perhaps for Andrew, would you say that there are some services that our library offers that are more core than others? I mean, hiring out library books would be a historical core business for a library. I'm not sure all of our activities in the library would follow suit. Open to input from others.
Yeah. Look, as Councillor Lee, as I mentioned earlier, what those services are not defined in the bill, and I think that's the government's intent. The government had the opportunity to define that more prescriptively. I don't see that they're doing that. I see that they're indicating it's up to local communities to determine what their library does. And as Alex has indicated, we're studying closely what our customers who come into the library are looking for, what services they're looking for, and then, as Councillor Brown indicated, for us to customise our asset to provide those tailored services as those trends change. So we're continuing to do that. Happy for others to add if you need to.
Yeah, that's correct. And in terms of our own measures that we have there, those were set in the LTP, so we're just providing I guess, responses to how we're performing at those that have been set for us.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up question. The dip in customer interactions and the door count, I think this is the first full financial year that we have not had the Sunday library open. Would that account for the dip?
Councillor Lee, I'm not sure that it would account for the dip in total. I think there may have been some impact, but I think more of an impact has been seen through a drop in computer use and programs bringing people into the library. So, as you can see, our book issues and our e-book use and other activities are quite consistent. So, I don't know that it's had as much of an impact as we might have thought. With the consistency in door numbers, the drop compared to last year is 0.3%. So, I think the impact's been minimal.
Okay. Are we familiar with how many other similar-sized councils open on a Sunday?
We can get that data from every library in New Zealand through our association with Public Libraries New Zealand. It's quite variable. The challenge is comparing apples with apples.
Yes.
Based on population base. A lot of districts have more than one library. Some libraries are run by community groups. So the challenge is just comparing that data. I have talked to some of our colleagues in the Bay of Plenty Waikato region, and it's quite variable. Some libraries are seeing an increase in door count, while other libraries in the same district are seeing a drop. So I think, we just need to measure that data over time to really understand the impact.
Yeah, I'd be interested in what other councils are doing in that space in the future. I just like to have a shout out to the lovely lady or person in the customer advisors. That rather a heartwarming paragraph here in customer solutions, assisting an elderly person who'd paid her rates to the wrong council, and I'd buy that staff member a coffee, just saying, whoever it is. The act of kindness and initiative significantly eased the customer's distress and exemplifies the group's approach to delivering a customer-centric service. Wonderful stuff.
Thank you, Councillor Lee, and I'm pretty sure Laurie's feeling warm and fuzzy about that too.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll hold you to that cup of coffee, Councillor Lee. Ka nui te mei, thank you. E te manukura ka ia koe te wā.
Thank you very much. Look, I am understanding that there are many councils across the country that have actually closed down some of their libraries due to cost pressures, and I'm really glad that we were absolutely not one of them. But back to the direction from the government to councils on focusing on core services, I think this is also an opportunity to fairly and rightly suggest that the government could actually come in and be funding either through Ministry of Social Development or otherwise some of the programs that may not be core to learning and literacy, but are really crucial to ensuring that our community can access a free and safe place to learn the skills that they need to be productive and positive members of our community. So I just wonder because I did see library services review, will there also be a consideration of what services are best placed for us to do, or what services should registered social service agencies or government agencies be providing instead of that cost and responsibility falling on us financially and through staff time?
Yeah, thank you. That is part of the review we're doing, particularly with adult services. Our adult learning specialist is working with various different organisations, including governmental organisations, to assess what's being delivered through those providers and where we can fill the gaps and supplement those services. The really cool thing about that is we're actually partnering with a lot of different providers at the moment to trial some new programs through the library, because as we know, the library is a space where a lot of our community feel really comfortable. So rather than sending them somewhere, a blank space, so to speak, they're welcome in at the library, but we're partnering with other providers to deliver those services. And trying not to compete where we've got some really good services already being provided. We're also working with MSD at the moment to fund staff to provide some digi-coaches, so digital literacy coaches being funded through MSD. So that's a partnership that's been trialled throughout the country at a number of different libraries, and we're working through that process at the moment to see that delivery take place here in Rotorua. So there's lots of very cool things going on.
Excellent, thank you. And just a final question, and if this is commercially sensitive, then by all means feel free to just send us an email regarding it. But I'm just curious about the Children's Health Hub. Never really comes up. I know that it's operated independently, but it is that was a partnership to co-share that building with it was DHB at the time. What do they call them now? Whatuora, thank you. Yeah, Whatuora. And I just wonder if is that a lease arrangement? Is there a timeline on that? Like, is the fact that we've provided a public asset to, again, a government agency who do provide crucial services, I'm very pleased that there's, a accessible, safe space for children to go instead of going to the big scary hospital, as they sometimes call it. But what is also the benefit or the cost to council? I'd just be quite curious if we could explore that in person, because I've actually it's never really been brought to the council table, although I would view that building as a council asset.
Yeah, thank you. The buildings, parts of the building that are used by Te Whatuora are leased. We do have a long-term lease arrangement with them, and they also contribute to the operating costs of the building in part. The benefit, I guess, is the kicker here, is that it's huge benefit to our community, and we work in partnership with them, particularly on the preschool and the younger age group services there. They supplement some of what we do, and we support the whānau coming in to use the library space and access their services through literacy opportunities, so broadening their knowledge around nurturing their children.
Tēnā koe te manukura I whenua ko nei taku pātai, but I'll just hand it over to you, to Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Julianne. Mr. Chair, I'll decline Councillor Lee's invitation to address the core services question, because I don't want to spend my time picking on hypocrisy of certain individuals in regards to freedom of speech, so long as it adheres to what they believe. So I'll move on to asking a question of Julianne, if I may. Julianne, when we buy books, and sorry, I presume through the Copyright and Libraries Acts, how does that leverage against buying ebook rights? How is it fairly potatoes, or are ebooks far more expensive or far less expensive?
Same, but different. So it's driven by publishers, basically, and we work through suppliers here in New Zealand, different suppliers to provide different types of resources. Everything's different. Obviously, a physical book is a physical book. Once we've got it, and we can hang on to it as long as we like. Obviously, we don't. We do a lot of research into how long we keep books for, depending on popularity, etc. E-books and e-audio books are a little bit different. There's loads of different rules and regulations around those governed by the publishers. Even to the point that sometimes you can get a series of books that's delivered by one publisher and then they change to another, so the rules change. It's quite a different thing to navigate. It can depend on the number of issues versus time frame. So we just have to work with those suppliers really closely to make sure we've got a good continuous supply that meets demand.
Thank you. So apologies, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but we can't just actually correlate. So physical books have dropped off, so we're saving money. The rise in e-book reading obviously also costs too.
It's variable, yes, it costs too, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anui te mihi, kia ora, Councillor O'Brien. Seems there's no more questions to do with this part of the thing. So Julianne, tēnā koe, you're off the hook. And
I'll invite Stuart down. We can.
Who's Stuart?
He's behind the TV as well.
Morena, hiding behind the TV.
Some museum questions. Thank you.
Hapai, so this is to do with the museum e Hoama. So we'll start off with you, Councillor Patterson. Kia ora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Stuart. So just harking back to a couple of the points raised, there were some potential grants that we may have had to return. That didn't happen, did it?
Through the Chair, correct, Councillor, we haven't had to return any grants.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And my next question, very short and sweet. You mentioned, Alex, about a staged reopening. If we went to that, because we had no option, are there any caveats from the other side, from the construction side, that could interfere with?
I can answer to a certain extent. So the construction program is on a trajectory. We are working closely with them in terms of design to see what we need to put in place over the coming months to deliver, the concept that this council has seen. In terms of a staged reopening, we will have everything that we need by and large in those locations to be able to deliver an offering. I don't think there's anything that would prevent us opening in a staged approach with the construction program as it is.
Sorry, I was referring to the grants that we got. Any of those grants for the construction didn't have caveats that said you must open the whole thing, or?
There are some conditions around the grants, but I'll let Stuart answer those.
Yes, through the Chair, yes, there are a couple of grants prerequisite, final payments, not the whole grant, but the last payments from Ministry of Heritage and Culture, I think is 1 million off the top of my head, that's required on the museum being fully functional. And the other one is Bay Plenty Regional Council is also final payments on full and functioning opening museum.
Thank you.
Te rangatira, Councillor Maxwell, kia koe te wā.
Mr. Chairman, kia ora, Brandy. The question I've got is 4.3D. A formal request has been made to the museum, to the Pukaki Trust, seeking a decision to include Pukaki in the new exhibition. For me, I'd like to know what progress, what's an update on that?
So yes, we have been in contact with the Pukaki Trust. We've had a meeting with Pāroa Tapsel in the last couple of weeks. There is a Pukaki AGM coming up, I think in October this year, and I presume that there'll be further discussion at that point.
Seems there's no other questions, Stuart, so I think you're good to go. Thank you. Mihi nui, what's our next part of that?
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Laurie, how about you?
Oh my, Laurie, how do I?
Just as a reminder, Laurie is our Manager of Customer Solutions.
Are you okay there, Stuart?
Yeah, you're good, but entertainment.
Were you so surprised at only a few questions? Kia ora, Laurie, tēnā koe. So this is the Community engagement.
Call centre, customer service, front desk, emails. Yep.
Ka pai. So are there any questions for Laurie in this particular area? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Laurie. Could I just ask, and apologies if this comes under another department, I see you process limbs and it was just over 1,100 for the period quoted in the report. So is that, payments that you guys deal with, or do you also deal with the actual limb processing itself as well?
Kia ora. So with the limbs, we lodge the limbs at first point of contact.
But that's handled by a different department?
And it's handled by a different department.
And that would be Mr. Gaston's area, would that be right?
Correct.
Thank you. I'll save my question for them. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your report, the challenges, risks, opportunities, insights, technology solutions to staffing challenges, I'm guessing falls primarily with customer services. AI is burgeoning and it's happening in a hurry. Are we looking into that space and how might we use AI to streamline things?
Correct, Councillor Brown, through you, Mr. Chair. The ability to use AI to help direct customers where they need to go in terms of subject matter experts is what Laurie and the team are exploring as we speak. But there are opportunities to be more broader than that too, for people that are on phones to be able to access the information really quickly. So we're, I guess the team are actively looking into that now. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Laurie? No.
I might just add, through the chair, there's a sequencing piece around the portals that Alex talked about earlier, and those portals allow customers to have their bespoke information in front of them and make queries with that context. At the moment, the AI bots that we have, or the AI licenses, won't allow access to personal information when handling AI calls. So what I've asked the team to do is prioritize getting the portals up and running, and then with the bespoke information that comes through the individual portals, track how that's going. And then if there's a need to use AI to answer questions that can't come through with the use of the personal information, that's where we'd deploy it. So I see that as probably a quarter or two away rather than at this point.
Entry then to the CEO. Are we having a conversation across the country with other cities on how this might roll out for the country?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some councils, I know Hutt City Council's done quite a lot in terms of using AI, and I'm been in touch with their chief executive. We're quite keen to do a study tour at some stage. But as I said, we've got a program in the next quarter or two around deployments that I want to make sure we get right. And then we'll look a bit more further afield. But yeah, we're keeping our finger on the pulse on what's going on.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Barker, followed by Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the team for your reports. Councillor Brown has actually asked my question and it's been well answered. Thank you.
Ka pai. Councillor Maxwell, kaya koe te wā.
Mr. Chairman, Laurel, the 2020 rates rebates in these very challenging times, is that just normal or?
Yes, no, that is normal. We usually would lodge through around 2020, just over 2,000 rates rebates each year within each financial year.
Thank you.
Is that your question?
Hi.
Ka pai. Okay, kia ora, Laurie. I don't think there's any more. Oh, sorry, I take that back. Councillor Lee, kaya koe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to give Laurie an opportunity to tell us a bit more about this fantastic customer service. It reminded me of, was it Jan Carlson, who was in charge of Scandinavian Airways in the 1980s, a company that was busy going broke, and then he turned the whole company around on the basis of providing the best customer service in Europe, taking the airline from, I just see here, the 14th out of 17 airlines in Europe to number 1. So the story that I referred to before about one of your staff taking somebody to the other council and sorting their rates out for them. I mean, this is what Andrew was telling us about when, as chief executive, he was offering his services to us. He's a customer-focused person from private enterprise. Tell us more about what's happening in the customer services department there, Laurie.
Thank you, Councillor.
Were you able to ascertain a question from that?
It's really lovely feedback, and I can say Laurie is single-handedly turning us into a high-performing airline. Look, this is just one of many examples, I guess, of what that team do. I think the last report we talked about, someone was looking a bit disoriented. We got them to the right, we found out who they were and where they needed to be and escorted them. This is the bread and butter of that team. They really do care for the people that come in. I'll hand over to Laurie if she wants to make any kind of further comments. But your thanks is welcome, and we'll pass it on to the team.
Thank you.
I'd invite you to make some comments if you want to, Laurie, unless Alex has wrapped it up nicely for you.
She's wrapped it up nicely.
There you go. Tēnā koe, Councillor Lee, for that question. Hoi anō, Laurie, can you please, and that goes for everyone here, to give our mihi and our thanks, because especially the front-facing people that have to deal to put things day-to-day, call centre and face-to-face. So, e mihi atu na kia koe me tō rahi, o tira kia koutou katoa. Ka pai. Thank you.
And we have one more, and I'd like to invite Jill Campbell. So Jill is our acting manager of community engagement. So, and is responsible for our community funding portfolio, our youth council, and welcoming communities. Thank you.
No mai haere mai, Jill. Thank you for being patient and waiting at the back there. So I guess I'm opening up for questions, Councillor Patterson, and let's, just from the last kaupapa, can we keep our questions to questions and nice and short, direct, succinct. Kia ora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, kia ora, Jill. Just a question with regards to our welcoming communities. I guess you could say funding that we get support for. Is that okay? That's safe?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the contract with DIA finished on the 30th of June of this year, and our requirement to deliver to that contract was to establish a plan for this coming year, which we are committed to.
Great, thank you. And my only other question was the community matching fund itself. I know I was absent at the last meeting of this committee. Have we had a report presented by those who've actually received, the recipients, and what they've done with the money that we've given them? Have we had any information or feedback from them that can say, hey, we achieved this?
Through you, Matua Chair. Yes, we actually are working on a report to possibly come to the next council with regards to reporting that as a requirement of all applications. And so aside from having spent the $100,000 envelope, we also have reports on each and every project that was funded. We're working through that as we speak and should have that probably within the month.
Thank you very much. That'd be great, because I know, particularly for anybody who may be watching this, that they would love to see where their money is going and the impact that it's having in our community. So that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Councillor Patterson. Kia koe anō, Trev. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kia ora, Jill. The question I have is, it's around the youth. I think the class of 2024 Youth Council have been very excellent this year. So this is not a criticism, but in the recruiting this time, I think you're going about it very shortly. So for 2025, I think they missed out on getting some people from the Kurukupapa schools. So we're going to work on that this year for next year.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We had a rigorous selection process when we take young people on as youth counselors, but often you will have schools who put forward their head boys, head girls, or prefects. To ensure we have a range of rangatahi voice in that youth council, we're very aware about that being, having a wide breadth of representation. So there are strong efforts being made to ensure our Kura rangatahi have the opportunity to participate. And sometimes I think what we need to realize is that it can be very intimidating and isolating when you are a lone wolf, in a sense. And so we want to ensure that we are providing spaces for those young people to come in and not just be the one and only Te Reo Māori speaker, that this is a wide breadth of representation across the district of the young people around that table. So we're aware. Kia ora.
No more questions, it seems. So, Jill, tēnā koe. Thank you for coming in and doing the kōrero. I think our little speed dating kaupapa worked, Alex, so it's really well. Everyone got a chance to ask the questions to their whatever area they were interested in. So, mihinui kia koutou katoa, tēnā tātou. I think we'll go to a break now. E karema, go for a cup of tea. 15 minutes back at 11:40, and then we'll wrap up, hopefully before lunch. Kia ora. I hope to keep this moving well and we keep it nice and efficient. And moving on to the next agenda item before we went to the break, and that was going to be the regulatory services with JP. So before we get into that, can I please get Councillor O'Brien and moved, Councillor Patterson seconded. All in favour say aye. If I got here, carried. I'd like to invite you to have a kōrero with us, JP.
Thank you. Good morning. So just there was just a couple of extra things that hadn't been included in the report that I just sort of got as slides, if that's okay, councillors, just to quickly go through before we just dive into some questions about the report. So just there's a air quality control bylaw. So again, you've heard extensive conversations about the plethora of bylaws we have and the need to review them. We own this bylaw, so we've produced this bylaw for the Regional Council, and it's enforced by the Regional Council. Again, there's a number of planning reasons as to why this was done historically. Regional Council wants to renew it and review it and basically close off some loopholes that are within the plan, but also just to update it on the efficiency around burners, which they've done in the past as well. So there's no particular costs expected changing other than what's already been in place, and so really it's just giving an early warning which would carry over into next year around consultation. So that's the first one. And then the second one, and obviously we've just had the submissions this morning, councillors, about the inner city bylaw and policy reviews, just picking up on those different ones, solid waste, traffic and general bylaws. And so just I don't think we've summarised previously that it was 95 submissions. We had 5, but turned into 4 this morning, submitters speaking, and really the focus has been about using the digital campaign, which really came through quite strong and did encourage people to go online and give us those responses. We did have those targeted discussions we've talked about previously with the supermarkets and those retailers who have trolleys particularly, but also the work we did through the Chamber to talk to businesses within the CBD. So that was just an update on those two processes. Outside of that, councillors, in front of you is our sort of progress report on the regulatory services areas. Just sort of from a high level, what you'll see across the service levels recorded in that report is you can actually see the impacts of our staffing availability. So if you look at some of the graphs, some of the challenges we've had across the year has been where we haven't had a full complement of staff in particular areas. So you can see those kind of impacts in different quarters where staff availability has impacted on our service. So a lot of our regulatory services are 100% driven by our human capacity to deliver those services. So we try our best then to manage, and particularly there's a couple of those licensing areas where there was a big push in the last quarter once we were with full staffing complement to try and close off all of that area. However, we did end with some of those inspections not being completed. Now, that's not acceptable to us. And again, it was reasons why are pretty clear around the staffing, but we got a supportive letter from the government around saying actually that's not too bad. I don't know how they measure that, but certainly from our perspective we want to make sure we cover off all our required inspections within an annual basis. So again, your ability to see what we're doing in that space really does just reflect sometimes on what you can't see, which is our staffing numbers. So I'm happy to answer off any questions about either the slides or the report.
Tēnā koe JP, if there are any questions, relating to the kaupapa that have been put forward, understanding their updates, and just more to inform us, we'll go along with the questions. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, JP. Just going back to the first slide that you showed us where it talked about Bay of Plenty Regional Council having a review of the wood burners scenario again. And then it says no significant cost for the community expected. So does that mean that the, I guess you could say the criteria for those fireplaces, and the output that comes from those fireplaces is not going to change from the one that was brought in, I think it was just before COVID. Are they going to be tightening those requirements?
I'll just hand over to Greg to cover off that.
Yeah, to Greg.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Look, we're working really closely with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council on this. This is to kick off the review, and you would have seen an article in the paper not that long ago about the success of this bylaw and the airshed itself. What the review is going to now entail is us going back and pulling up all of that data to see exactly what a recommendation would entail in this bylaw. We're wanting to start this review early. This bylaw will lapse in 2027, but we're really wanting to kick this off now so that we have enough time between us and the Bay of Plenty Regional Council to work together to develop what that could look like, and that would come forward to the next council.
Okay, so is there a likelihood that the wood burners that were okay in 2020 may not be okay whenever this finishes?
I think, Councillor, it's more a case of if you have a wood burner of a particular type that was authorised in the previous iterations, until you replace them, they're okay. So if they change the list of approved burners, that's a different, and that's how they've done it in the past. They've updated the list to say you can only buy this new burner of this type, which does come at a cost to the person purchasing it. So they lifted the bar on the quality requirements around the wood burners. I'm not sure what the next outcome is, whether it's another step up in the requirements around the efficiency of the wood burner, but that's going to be part of this discussion piece here. So we're just taking it on this basis that they might be modifying that list of burners, but it doesn't make someone take out their previous one and replace it, is my understanding.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to get at. And my second question, pertains to the report. Animal control listed as priority 1, which also includes wandering stock. So whose responsibility is it for wandering stock on State Highway 5? Is that us? Because on Saturday, driving up to take my wife to dialysis, came round the corner by that statue, you know, the silver statue of the face, and on the side of the road was a massive deer just standing there munching on undergrowth. So I immediately rang council, and she said, I'll put you through to NZTA. And I went, no, because they're not here. So we need to react to that. Are we responsible for that, or who?
I'm not sure, Councillor, let me...
Through you, Chair, if I may, there was stock on the road at Okereke a few years ago, and there was a police car coming the other way, and I flashed them and said, who do I call? And they said, phone 111.
Yeah.
So it's a police, from that conversation I understand it's a police responsibility to deal with stock on the road.
Police, not us.
Yeah, I think on the NZTA roads, particularly when it's stock, it is a significant road hazard and dangerous. And I think there's a relationship between NZTA and the police. They're the ones who need to move into action in that sort of space. I think we've had the same issue with some of our conversation about our wandering stock bylaw, which did delineate the state highways were different.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Tēnā koe, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the polluted airshed status has been removed, as it was recently, do we even need a bylaw? Who dictates the need for this bylaw?
Greg. I can answer that through you, Chair. Look, we're going to be doing the research on this to understand what central government changes may be coming in and what may not be coming in. You, as a council, will be the ones that will be receiving the research and adopting the bylaw. Chances are, though, we will be presenting as a joint Bay of Plenty Regional Council and council staff on this, and advocating either for or against, depending on the outcome of the review. So you, as this council, will be making the decision on that.
Okay, through the chair, I would like to know, I'm assuming we'll be around next time, but would like to know the necessity of it and who drives the need. It'd be nice to drop one.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And following suit, I'd be interested to know what the policy looks like in comparison to what other regional councils are doing. And that would be a good benchmark against which to measure it, I would think. Thank you.
I'm sure that's something that they're looking into. Would that be right, Greg? But good to put it on record. Councillor Maxwell, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question, if I can ask either Greg or JP. I know we're pretty unique here. We're in a bit of a cold era, and we've had the coldest, wettest winter for a long, long time. Has things improved, or?
I think the reporting that we saw in the media was the regional council signalling that there has been quite significant gains. There is a small number of areas within the country that had an air quality issue, and so that reference to what other councils have done to improve their air quality is quite important, I think, to the review discussion. I think critically here, before you proceeded, isn't it, is to understand from the regional council the impact and cost involved in what's being done to date, and what is required going forward. So that's certainly something we can note and make sure that for the new council coming in, at some point that's programmed.
Councillor Barker, followed by Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, JP. Just on noise control, pages 57 and 58, I noticed that we are not meeting our KPI 75% of the time we are, and there's been some effort to work with a noise contractor. Have we got any resolution to that? And that's the first part of the question. And the second part is, do we have our response times set at an appropriate level? I just see that rural areas, it's 2 hours response time, and things could well be out of control by then. But anyways, 2 questions there.
I'll just carefully approach this, Council. As you can see, that we did signal in here that there was a need to have that conversation about what had gone astray in the last, I think it was the second and third quarter particularly, had seen a drop. We also had a system issue which meant some calls were not being recorded accurately, so we weren't actually able to measure whether the timing was being achieved, and that's to do just with the system fix which now has been completed. So there's 2 elements to this. We have got a situation where our existing provider has exited, and so we've actually got an interim solution that we're currently undertaking. So again, we're just working our way through that. That might mean certainly for the first quarter of this year, again, our performance may not hit the required standards, but it certainly gives us a chance to make sure that we understand where we're up to, and make sure we've got the trained provision in place.
Thank you. And we obviously set those response times. Is that done as part of the bylaw itself, or?
I think that was more a case. I think my understanding is we set those ourselves as our own performance measures. So levels of service discussion that we've undertaken as part of the activity plans. So certainly that would be the time to, if you wanted a higher level of service, we could start investigating. So what are the implications of that?
Thank you. Subsequent to that, if I don't mind, Chair, just noting that some of the noise issues in rural areas might be somewhat different to those in urban areas, and whether there's any discretion within the policy or the level of service to allow for livestock noises and that kind of thing, and measurement of such, which sounds rather banal, but when you live in a rural area and you have certain activities next door to, small residential towns, that can be quite impactful. So I don't know, maybe that's a future discussion.
A short answer, Councillor, though, would be there is always the question about reverse sensitivity and existing uses in those kind of spaces. noise measurement is extremely complicated if we end up in a situation where there's more than just the decibel levels being recorded. Intermittent noise and rhythmic sound noises, we've been here before as a district, and it's really complex. So that has led to us being quite careful about what we do. So there is a responsiveness required, but also a pragmatism and a view of what's ambient to the area involved.
Thank you. Yeah, because there's some situations that are not ambient and it's not quite easy to capture, like you say. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Councillor Barker. Councillor O'Brien, kia koe te wā.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last and probably least, thank you for your very comprehensive report, JP. Much appreciated. If I may, with the lenience of the Chair, I'll just ask, as in order that you've got your report here, one of the comments that was passed by one of the submitters today around the verandas, could I just ask you, is there a requirement in either our city ordinances or as part of the Building Act that a part of the CBD you must provide a veranda, or is that purely on choice of the landlord?
No, there is a district plan rule that requires verandas to be provided in certain parts of the city, yes.
So, sorry, that would be the CBD, essentially?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Thank you. And major shopping centres, like, so if I could say Fordlands or
I couldn't say accurately whether those areas are. I believe they do, but I would have to come back to you on that. But
would you mind, just so we can know for... so I suppose just the comment passed was the person would hate to see, parts of the veranda. So there is a requirement, certainly in the CBD, for an owner of property to provide a veranda. And all we're doing is essentially asking them to make it safe for the public use.
Correct. So it's a high bar normally for the insanitary or dangerous. And so in a way we are relying on a private owner whose veranda that we require impinges on the public space. So that's the piece where we're, through the bylaw that we've put forward, are seeking a level of ability to respond for our public access and for our safety.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify because the submitter this morning perhaps may not be aware, but that's okay. If I can move on to parking services, you make a comment there about the corrosion to the machines. Now that's obviously going to be ongoing no matter what system we seem to use, whether it was the discs in the ground or the old meter, the coin meters, and obviously what we have now. So what's your feeling towards moving forward on our on the next council's decisions around? Do you have a preference for, say, an app-only system, or are you still open-minded to still having machinery out in town?
Councillor, I think when we presented to you previously and put forward the framework we'd proposed, we had recommended that we would continue to have machines. We would probably be more selective about the extent of the area. The other piece that we would look at is that there is some known areas where there is more of a challenge than others. So there's a question around siting. But equally, if we go through a process as we move towards a new parking solution, one of the things we were hoping to make sure we put in place is some level of testing and requirements around protection for sulphur damage. So 3 kind of strategies: reduce the area of machine usage, targeted locations, which also take away from our problem areas, and a more robust discussion around how they're set up, their maintenance and their replacement.
Thank you for that. If I can move on to geothermal, I see from Bay of Plenty Regional Council, forgive me, this was a July update, so it may have changed. Following the government's announcement to suspend all plan changes until the new Resource Management Act replacements are introduced or come into force, Plan Change 11 for the Rotorua geothermal system has been put on hold. But they still are developing the Tauranga System Management Plan and are still implementing the Rotorua System Management Plan, which was adopted last year, but they're continuing with that because it was a policy change as to a plan change. Do you see that having any subsequent, with the plan change put on hold, any substantial change to our operations, our city's operations?
That's a good question, Councillor. I suppose we've had a change in the approach through the strategy. They put in place that management regime last year. They were going to carry that forward into their rules framework through that plan change. So if anything, we've got a half shift from the previous place to where they want to get to next. So I think this actually slows down some of those changes that they had envisaged within the plan that was consulted on. So I actually think it's more of a status quo position.
Thank you. In your opinion, is that a better scenario for us as a council, or it doesn't matter so much?
I think we've submitted, Councillor, on the fact that we have a fantastic resource that is available not only on the production fields outside of the city, but also opportunities within the city to make more use of the resource. The current approach makes it harder, and increasingly we're hearing through businesses who have had bores that they're almost retrenching back from it because of the cost of the consenting and the challenges around what they need to do to get a consent. So not many new and a reduction in those existing. So I think that's a negative outcome.
Okay, thank you for that. Can I ask, further on in your report, you talk about us addressing or responding to geothermal complaints around sulfide. I'm still at a loss, and I know this isn't on you, why Regional Council takes the money from the resource consents, yet we answer and hey, I appreciate someone has to do it. We don't want anyone becoming sick or, God forbid, a fatality. But I think there needs to be a discussion with Regional Council to say, if you're taking the money, you do the job. And I appreciate that's not something you can do tomorrow, but I think that does need to be a concern raised with them, or they provide us some funding to cover this cost and service.
Councillor, I agree totally. There's a piece of legislation which has been around for a really long time that puts a lot of onus onto the Rotorua Lakes Council. That's not the normal way you would consider managing activities these days. There'll be a lot more emphasis on the use of the resource consent as the right vehicle. So you're right, we caught was a historic framework, and that does go to legislation, which does require probably a longer run of potential changes, but I agree.
Thank you. And I'm not asking for an action point. Because as I say, I still want the issue being dealt with. We perhaps need to look at the cost centre where that's ending up. Just my last couple of points, please. So noise control, if I can follow on from what Councillor Barker says. So you said there was a system issue with the complaint going through?
That's for a small number of the measures you can see here. There's a percentage which are unaccounted for, and that's because we hadn't been able to measure it. It's about 5%.
Thank you. And was that our system failure or the contractor?
That was our system failure.
Okay, thank you. And forgive me, so you say the contractors exited their position. So you have an interim, is that staff-wise or someone else?
There's a combination of things. So we have another provider who does security work for us. So they're providing to Midnight some noise control cover for us while we go through a process of just securing the fuller 24-hour coverage. So we actually got a reduced service after midnight, but there is still an ability to respond via the police if it's after midnight. So we have got a reduced service gap at the moment.
Thank you. Sorry, can I just clarify that? So we will answer calls up until midnight. After midnight, we refer them on to the police. Is that right?
That's our pathway at the moment, yes.
And do you know sort of a time frame, how long that will be in place?
We're working.
Are we talking weeks? Are we talking months, do you think?
I don't know at this stage, Councillor. We're working quite hard to make it as short a time frame as possible. So we're talking weeks as the aim.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, well, we'll leave that. And just finally on to animal control. From the report that Ms Wilson put forward, I see that they processed something, in the vicinity of just over 7,000 dog registrations have been renewed out of 11,000. Sorry, that's what was in her report. So is that saying that today roughly 3.8 are still unregistered?
don't have those numbers in front of me, Councillor, but we would have been into the usual process of those who met the time frame, so those who registered by the required date. You know, the next process is the reminder letter and then the application of the fine.
Thank you. So from that, by the end of August, if they haven't registered with the increased fee, we will be putting this to court again?
Councillor, the signal in the report is, you see, we changed last year to move away from using the court system. We were actually not finding we were getting a significant amount of resolution, so we're making more use of Bay Corp for our collection of overdues in the first instance. So there is a requirement for court lodging around animal control, but actually our collection now has been more focused on Bay Corp. So we're actually comparing our impact on both parking and some of our other overdue fines by using Bay Corp more extensively.
Thank you. And can I ask, so you're obviously confident you've checked out the Dog Control Act allows us to go via Bay Corp. We don't need the courts to enforce that?
Bay Corp in there, and I did put that caveat in there too, so we are using Bay Corp more, but I think I'll have to check again with the staff. My recollection is we still do need to use the court for the enforcement action.
So sorry, forgive me. So we're putting it with Bay Corp, but we still need the courts first, or we go through the courts for the determination and Bay Corp then follow up?
I think I have to check on that, Councillor. My recollection is that we're trying to make more use of Bay Corp than we have, but I'm not quite sure whether there's still a necessity of making sure that those who are overdue are logged first through the courts. My recollection is actually for animal control, they do need to go through the courts.
Thank you. Could I just, final question, just ask about the limbs? I see there was in Ms Wilson's report, they've processed just over 1,100. Would you be able to provide what the time frame average is on those? Because it's handy to have the number, but the question I know I will get from real estate agents, etc., and people in that industry is, hey, I've been waiting 5 days, it should be 3 or whatever it is. If we could have some figures around that, if that would be possible.
Councillor, that would normally be in my housing progress report, but because this is pretty much the last cycle, I could find that number specifically for you and just circulate it to councillors.
Thank you, much appreciated. Thank you, Mr Chair. I would just ask my colleagues just to remember, animal control is very serious because, the ramifications when it goes wrong is pretty serious. And maybe moving forward, the registration fees, just putting them up and up for people that already can't afford, I would just perhaps urge those around the table next year to think about maybe there has to be some form of subsidy helping match this, because we seem to be in a bit of a revolving circle here, and I don't see sort of outcomes changing. There's that old thing, you keep the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. So I think I would ask my colleagues to, if they're lucky enough to be returned after October, to be perhaps thinking about that for the next annual plan, because this is something that we do need to make sure that we're supporting the team to have the proper resources to be able to action this. Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. Thank you for your report, JP.
Tēnā koe, Councillor O'Brien. I do recall when there was submissions around the dog kaupapa, around a few of them that presented that said that they, why would you penalise good dog owners, things like that. So quite cognizant of what you've just said there, and I'm sure as we all are. And yes, I think so. We'll take those things on board. JP, there doesn't seem to be any more questions for you at this time. So thank you for answering those questions. And we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, which is the last part of the agenda. Sorry? Oh, okay. Couple. I was just going to give an option, but no option. Moved by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Wang. And just so for your information, it's to it's for the minutes of the last confidential hui that we had, and to make them public. So unless there was any changes that people wanted to make me aware of, which nobody has, then I suggest that we go straight forward and we don't need to go into confidential. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favour say aye. E whakahe ka kua mana. Thank you very much. Thank you for good meeting today. And with that, mihia sone kia koutou katoa, ka tuku atu te karanga kia koe, te manukura ki te whakakapi tā tātou hui ki te karakia. Tēnā koe.
Thank you very much, and thank you for chairing in Deputy Mayor's absence. Kia whakairi ai te tapu, kia wāti ai te ara, kia turu ki whakataha ai, kia turu ki whakataha ai, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e.
Ka pai homa, kua hiki te hui. And thank you to all the staff.